Thank you very much for attending this presentation. I'm Eric Sanchez. I'm from the University of Fribourg, and I lead a special group on the use of game in education. And the project that I will present is about the use of game in museum, in the school during a school visit. I created a cloud of words from my paper, and you can see that I will talk about students. I will talk about the use of games, and there is a specific topic that we expect that the students will learn. It's Anthropocene. I will explain what is this concept. And this is work that I have done with colleagues from the museum. We have also a computer scientist, and we have also a PhD student. And it's today. So the project starts some years ago. Somebody called me. Somebody was a former student. He told me, I am now a museum director, and I have a big challenge. I am the museum director of Natural Museum. It's easy to have young children in the museum. They are happy to see stuffed animal and to see rocks. But when I have students from 20 to 15 years old, they say it's a disaster. It's impossible to have people interested in my museum, and I would like to do something for that. I remember the course that I had with you about game-based learning, and I think that a game could have the effects, could change the experience of the visitor in the museum. So would you like to come and visit me and try to develop a game for the museum? And of course I said yes, of course. And I went with four students and a colleague of mine who is a specialist of museum education. And we spent 1 week in the museum, and we designed the game. And some months and years after, we managed to develop the game, and we managed to test the game in the museum. The challenge is also because the topic that is supposed to be learned by the students is very complex. The topic is Anthropocene. What means Anthropocene? It means it's a new epoch where the impact of human being has a huge effect on Earth, so that we need to have a new epoch in the scale of geologists. So Anthropocene is this epoch of the impact of human being on biodiversity, on climate change, and etc. And it's difficult for students to understand this concept because this concept is a mix of social and scientific concept. I don't mean that sociology is not scientific, but I mean biology, geology, and also sociology. It's a mix of different concepts, and there are a lot of difficulties behind this concept. For example, it's about biodiversity. You have to understand biodiversity. You have to understand climate change, and so on and so on. So we try to develop something. And the work that we did is based on a concept which is Ludicization. It's close to gamification. It means that it's based on two words. Ludus means both school and game, and icization means the transformation. We try to transform the school visit into a playful experience. So it's close to gamification. And behind Ludicization, there are some core ideas. The first one is that play depends on the player. The player matters. If the player do not agree to play, we will not have play in this situation. We also have this core idea that we can frame the experience of people, and playing is a second degree, is a meta-language. And the last one is that if we manage to develop ludic and motivational affordance, we will help the people to play. So we have this concept, and what we want to do is to change the meaning of the school visit with a game. So the question that we address is related to the experience of the students. We would like to change the experience of the students in the museum so that they will be able to identify what kind of relationship they have with nature. And we would try to have this possibility that the students rethink this relationship. Regarding the state of the art of game and museum, we have different experience from now. We know a lot of games that are treasure hunting in museum. We have also some games that are related to scientific inquiry, and students' engagement is fostered by these games. And we have also failures, and we have failures in museum when we give students a game that miss the social interaction, and the students are stuck on the iPad, and they see the iPad, but they don't have a real school visit. They do not interact with the exhibition of the museum. So we have to be careful when we decide to have a game in a museum. The model that we use for the development of the game, for the design of the game, is a model who come from the work of Guy Brousseau. And this model has been adapted for games. This model is a Piagetian model. It comes from Piaget. The idea is that the player, if the player accepts to interact with the game, the player will try to perform some action. Depending on this action, he will have feedback, and what we expect is that the feedback will help the students to revise his knowledge and to change his understanding of the situation. The model is a Russian doll model. There are different layers. The second layer is a layer of play as well, and we have here two students that interact, and they interact. When they interact, they talk about the previous experience when they try to interact with the game. So this is a level where the students collaborate and they formulate and validate knowledge. They say clearly what knowledge they need to address the challenge in the game, and they also decide if the knowledge that they use is okay or validated or not validated. And of course, a game is always a part of a didactical situation, which means that people want to teach something, that the teacher has to intervene, and the teacher has to leave the game to carry out a debriefing session and to try to make the knowledge explicit in the situation. So this is the layer when the students leave the game and the students try to help the student to reflect about what was happening during the game session. And last but not least, but I will stop here, with my Russian doll model, the last level is the level between researcher and teachers, because they have to design the situation collaboratively, and this situation is a collaborative work with teachers or museum educators that are involved in the game. This is the model that we try to apply to design or to analyze the game that we use. So it's design-based research. We try to design something. We put hypotheses on this something, and we try to use it in the real context, so that we manage to get information about the consequences of the system that we implement in the museum. The game now. The game is a two-part game. The first part of the game the name of the game is Pearl Arbor. The name has been chosen by the student. Pearl Arbor, because we have a tree. When the student come to the museum, the tree talks to the children and says, "Please, I would like that you are hunters. Please go to the museum and try to capture as much animals as possible." And the students are displayed in the museum by small groups 2 or 3 students, and they try to capture animals. Capturing animals means having an iPad and taking a photo from the animal. By doing that, the resources of the tree decrease, and in 10-15 minutes, everybody has game over. Everybody lost the game because the resources of the game was used for capturing animals. And then starts a second part of the game, and this second part is about understanding animals. They have to come back to the museum and try to understand what are these animals in the museum. They have to solve puzzles, they have to understand the exhibition, and each time they manage to find a good answer, each time they manage to find a solution to a puzzle, then they gain points. They manage to regenerate the resources of the tree, but they win collaboratively. So I guess that you understand the metaphor. The game is a metaphor of what is Anthropocene. The game tells the students that we are now in an epoch where we have some interaction with nature. We are not a part of the nature, but we exploit the nature, and this exploitation lead to a disaster. We will face a disaster. So we have to change our behavior, and we have to become more friendly with nature and to understand this nature and to live with nature. So it's a massive metaphor of what is Anthropocene. In the game, we try to design a metaphor of Anthropocene. Pearl Arbor. It's chosen by the student. We didn't change the name. And after the game, according to our model, we have this debriefing session. Here you can see it's a museum director, but sometimes it's done by the museum educators. And there is a debriefing session, and the students are asked to reflect about the action that were performed during when they played. We try to make the knowledge visible. We try to put some words on the knowledge. They talk about biodiversity, they talk about climate change, and so on. It's not the case during the game. And the objective, the aims of this debriefing session is to try to make possible the transfer of the knowledge that the students discover during the school visit. So we started this project last year, and we decided to have an exploratory study, and we started with two research questions. The first one is about students' interaction. What was expected from the museum director is to have more interaction with the exhibition, more social interaction in the museum, and more interaction with the museum educators. And the second research question is about how to integrate the game in the museum. The grep is not enough by itself. We have to think about the role of the teacher, we have to think about the role of the museum educator, and we have to find a scenario in the museum and to try to make something that is usable. We carried out some experimentation in last December. We started with three classes of secondary school students, 3 different schools and 3 different teachers, and we had approximately 20 teachers per class, so it means we have around 60 students, and we did it in the museum with normal students according to the design-based research characteristic. You can see the students in the museum here. We collected data. We collected data from videotaping. We had 3 cameras in the different rooms, and we recorded 8 hours from the students' interaction. We can perform video analysis with a specific software that is dedicated to tag the video, because we want to recognize the different interaction that we have in the museum. And of course, we took field notes from observer, and we carried out also a focus group with the different people involved in the project. And the variable that we try to analyze are the spatial distribution of students. We try to see if they work individually, or if they are in group, or if the group is with the museum educator. And we also try to understand if the interaction are what kind of interaction we have. Is it taking a picture? Is it solving a puzzle, or interacting with an object in the museum? And the results, the preliminary results, are all in this table. The line are the different categories of spatial distribution for the students: individual with museum educator, team, or team plus museum educator. And the column are the different type of interaction in terms of do they interact with peers, with exhibition, with iPad, for solving puzzle, or for taking a picture. And what we started to see is that there is a difference between the two parts. It's not a mystery. It's not. It was expected, of course, but we confirm that we have two different games, two different parts, and the two different parts have a huge effect on the conduct of the students. If we have a look about the first part of the game, we can see that the students are concentrated on the iPad, and they don't see the exhibition. They are just looking at the iPad, and they take picture, and they learn nothing, of course. We cannot expect that they learn something, except then learning how to take a picture. But during the second part, we have more interaction with the exhibition, and also within the team, and with the museum educator. And the museum educator was against the game at the beginning of the project, and then he said, oh, I like this game, because before I was just a lecturer in the museum. I had a face-to-face course like an amphitheater. But now I am in the museum, and when they need information, they come to me, because they are autonomous in the museum. So we have some good feedback at the moment, and we have some previous ideas about the impact of the game on the behavior of the students and how they interact in the museum. The results from the focus group are about the game scenario. The first scenario that we have decided to implement in the museum was not perfect. We know that we have to involve more the teachers in this scenario. Usually the teachers are in the corner of the museum like that, and they are not involved, and it's a problem for the students. Now we have decided to involve the teachers in the group, in the research group, and we decided to have the teacher responsible for the briefing at the beginning of the game. It's very important to manage to have the students involved into the game, and at the end of the game, the teacher will be responsible for the debriefing. In between, the teacher is responsible for giving feedback to the students and or to help the students to manage to understand for example, the different puzzles that they have to solve. So we have changed the scenario, and we have changed the game as well. For example, we saw that the students want to earn as much points as possible, so they run in the museum. And running in the museum is a problem for a museum. So what we have added to the game is a sensor. When the students run, they lose points. So now they cannot move so quickly, and they have to be prudent with the iPad. We have some perspectives. One perspective should be already performed. It's to have learning analytics to collect data from the iPad and to analyze this data. But we have some problem with the company who developed the game. The format of the learning analytics is not yet usable for us. We have specific tools to use to analyze data, and they are not precise. And the second perspective is more a theoretical perspective. It's about the ideas that ludicization is it's a kind of behavioral patterning, and we have to think about that. And we manage to consider that the behavior of the student is a resource, and that we try to implement some games and to manage these resources. Yes, thank you very much.